Donald Trump just turned Gavin Newsom into the most humiliated governor in American history. Gavin Newsom looked the President of the United States in the eye, on live television in front of 40 cameras, and said the sentence that ruined him. He did not know it was the sentence that ruined him. He thought it was the sentence that saved him. That was the problem. That was always the problem with Gavin Newsom. He could never tell the difference between the moment he was winning and the moment he was handing somebody the knife. The press conference was supposed to last 15 minutes. A joint statement on federal infrastructure spending, flags behind them, cameras in the back, the kind of event that makes the evening news for 11 seconds and gets forgotten before the anchor finishes the next sentence. But Newsom had other plans. His team had spent 2 weeks prepping. Every answer scripted, every pivot rehearsed. This was not about infrastructure. This was footage. This was a down payment on 2028. To understand how a governor who had never lost a room on camera lost one in 40 minutes, you need to hear the first thing he said and the question the president asked right after it. Newsom stepped to the podium first. He always stepped first. Someone from his staff handed him a phone. He glanced at the screen, nodded, and slipped it into the inside pocket of his jacket. Trump came out alone. No aides, no folder. He tapped the podium twice with his palm, the way you thump a wall to check if it is hollow. Then he half smiled at nobody in particular. Newsom opened. He did not wait for questions. "Let me be clear about something before we start," Newsom said. "California is the 4th largest economy in the world, larger than Germany, larger than India. We lead the nation in technology, in renewable energy, in agriculture, in film, in biotech. This state has built more, innovated more, and contributed more to the future of this country than any state in the Union. And we did it while fighting a federal administration that has spent the last year sending troops into our cities and cutting the programs our families depend on." He paused, timed it perfectly. Then he looked to his left directly at the man standing 4 feet away and delivered the line his team had tested 3 times in rehearsal. "With all due respect, Mr. President, we don't need advice on management from a man who bankrupted casinos. It landed. A few reporters in the front row did that thing where they looked down at their notebooks to hide a reaction. A staffer behind the press riser nodded twice fast. The line had teeth, and it drew blood, and Newsom knew it because he did the thing he always did after a good shot, which was to settle back on his heels and let the silence carry it. If you have ever watched someone in a $5,000 suit lecture the country about fairness while their own state falls apart behind them, hit that like button right now, because the president just smiled, and the first question he asks is about to end the governor's whole afternoon. Trump did not respond to the insult. He did not bristle. He tapped the podium once more with 2 fingers, looked at Newsom the way a man looks at a contractor who has just handed him an estimate that does not add up, and nodded slowly. "That was good," he said. "That was really good. You practiced that one, Governor? Or was that, off the top?" "Newsom, still riding the casino line, I speak from conviction, Mr. President." "Conviction." Trump repeated the word like he was turning it over in his hand, checking it for weight. "I like that word. Okay, so we're speaking from the heart today. Good. Because I've got a couple questions. Simple stuff. Real simple. The kind of stuff a guy who bankrupted casinos can follow." A few people laughed. Trump half grinned at his own joke, the self-deprecation landing easy the way it always did, because there is something disarming about a man who beats you to the punch on his own failures. But underneath the grin, underneath the loose shoulders and the easy rhythm, something was being said. Newsom had just confirmed on camera to the country that he speaks from conviction, not from notes, not from staff, from the heart. Everything he said from this point forward, he owned. "Governor, you said California doesn't need saving. I heard you. So, Just help me with something? How long you've been running this state, Mayor, Governor? All of it? Total? I have served California in executive leadership for nearly 15 years. 15 years? Trump nodded. Long time. Good. So here's what I want to know. Real simple. From the heart, like you said. When you started, the unhoused situation, was it better then, or is it better now? Newsom's jaw shifted by a fraction of an inch. He knew the terrain, he had walked it 100 times, and he knew where the soft ground was. The unsheltered crisis is a complex nationwide issue that requires sustained federal partnership and investment in mental health infrastructure that this administration has systematically dismantled. I didn't ask about the nation, Governor. I asked about your state, your 15 years, better or worse. That's it. And here's something happened that the cameras caught, but that most people watching live did not notice until later, when the clip had been slowed down and freeze-framed and studied the way people study the Zapruder film. Newsom's eyes dropped just for a half-second down to the podium, to the spot below the rim where his phone sat in a small shelf built into the lectern. His eyes went down, found something there, came back up. Then he spoke, and the smoothness was back, and the smile was back. We have invested more in addressing this crisis than any state in American history. $27 billion in direct spending with measurable results, including a 9% reduction in unsheltered populations. $27 billion. Trump repeated the number. Then again, $27 billion. You know what I could do with 27? Look, I've made bad deals. Everybody knows the casinos. They love bringing up the casinos. The stakes. They love the stakes. He waved a hand. A few people laughed. But Governor, here is what I need you to help me with. You just told the whole country you spent $27 billion on this issue. So how many unhoused people are sleeping on the streets of California right now? As I said, we have seen a 9% reduction in unsheltered. The number, Governor, not the percentage. The number. Approximately 187,000 individuals experience being unhoused in California on any given night. 187,000. Trump let the number sit there. He did not rush past it. He let it breathe, the way a man lets bad news breathe before he responds to it. Governor, I've made some bad deals in my life. I admit that. I'm not going to pretend. But I have never in my life spent $27 billion and had more of the problem than when I started. He shook his head. I couldn't make a deal that bad if I was trying. That is a gross oversimplification of a crisis that has been decades. It's your number, Governor, not mine. You just said it from conviction. The room shifted. Not a laugh. Something sharper. The feeling of a number that had been abstract, suddenly gaining weight. The way a price tag gains weight when you realize it is yours. Newsom pivoted. He was good at pivots, maybe the best in the business. And he went where the ground felt firmest. If we're going to discuss California's challenges, let's also discuss California's strengths. This state's economic output. Were. One word. Newsom stopped. You were. That's the thing, Governor. You were the innovation capital. You were the place everybody wanted to be. But then, a funny thing happened. Trump started counting on his fingers, slow, one finger at a time. Tesla left. You remember Tesla? Elon liked California, loved it. Then he left. SpaceX gone, Oracle gone, Chevron, HP, Schwab. He held up a handful of fingers. Governor, those companies didn't come to Texas because I sent them a card. They ran from you. When Elon Musk says, you know what? I would rather build rockets in a swamp in South Texas than stay in your state, he trailed off, shaking his head. That's not an economy, Governor. That's a going out of business sale. Companies relocate headquarters for tax. How about people? Do people leave for tax purposes too? 1.7 million since 2020. You know what 1.7 million is? That's the whole city of Phoenix. Just gone, packed up. And they didn't move to France, Governor. They moved to states that work, and there it was again. The eyes down half a second. The phone below the podium rim. Back up. Anyone watching live might not have caught it the second time either, but anyone who caught it the first time caught it now. And in their living rooms in Louisiana, in Ohio, in the parts of the country that Newsom had once called flyover on a podcast he thought only his base would hear, they leaned forward. Because they had seen that look before, they had seen it on every middle manager who ever checked his phone under the conference table when the boss asked a question he could not answer. And they were starting to understand something about the governor of California that the magazines had never printed. Newsom found his footing, smooth again, smile back. People also moved to California. We recorded population growth last year for the third consecutive. From immigration, Governor, Americans are leaving. You're losing the tenants and advertising for new ones. That is a deeply misleading characterization. Is it wrong? Newsom did not answer that one. He told the country he spent $27 billion on this issue and has more unsheltered people than when he started. The biggest companies in the world fled his state. 1.7 million people packed up and left. And every time the president asks a question, the governor looks down at his phone. Drop one word in the comments right now. Just one showing up. Stay here. Because the governor is about to fight back harder than he has ever fought. And you need to hear what he says. Trump shifted, the showman loosened a notch, and something quieter came through. Look, I'm not going to stand here and pretend I'm perfect. I'm not. I've said dumb things. I've done dumb things. I once told a crowd I was the most humble person in the room. He paused. That didn't go great. The room laughed. Real laughter this time. Warm. The kind that comes when a man lets you laugh with him instead of at somebody else. Then the voice changed. Softer. Not performed. Or if it was performed, it was the kind of performance that sits so close to truth that the seam disappears. But here's what I know about the people who actually watch. The folks at home. They don't care if you're polished. They don't care about the hair. He glanced at Newsom. Sorry, Governor. Laughter again. They care about one thing. Do you do what you said you were going to do? That's it. That's the whole test. The whole thing. And those people, the ones watching right now, they have been passing that test every single day of their lives. Paying the mortgage, keeping the lights on, showing up to the job when they don't feel like it, keeping their word to their families, to their neighbors, to people they have known for 30 years in towns that nobody in Washington has ever visited. He looked at the cameras, and for a moment, just a moment, the showman was not talking to a room. He was talking to a kitchen table. They do it every day without a camera crew, without a Vogue cover, without anybody at a podium telling them they matter. They just do it because that is who they are. Beat. And they are tired. They are real tired of watching people who can't pass that test lecture them about how the country should work. If you have been keeping your word, paying your bills, and showing up every day without a camera crew while watching people who cannot keep a single promise tell you how to live, this one is for you. Drop one word in the comments showing up. Do not go anywhere, because the governor is about to swing back with everything he has left, and you need to hear it. Newsom had had enough. Something shifted in him, and the teleprompter's smooth delivery broke, and what came out was raw and hotter and more dangerous than anything his staff had written on any card. This was not rehearsed. This was Newsom angry. Genuinely angry. And the truth about Gavin Newsom is that he is more dangerous angry than he is polished, because the anger is real and the polish is not. And when the real thing comes out, it has edges that the scripted version never does. You want to stand in my state and talk about keeping your word? You? He turned fully toward Trump, abandoning the cameras for the first time all afternoon. You told the American people Mexico would pay for a wall, did they? You told them you would release your tax returns, did you? You told them the virus would disappear by Easter. You told them to inject unsafe solutions into their bodies. How did that go, Mr. President? He stepped closer to his microphone. You are a legally convicted individual. You pardoned people who beat police officers with American flags. You separated children from their mothers at the border, and you lost track of them. You lost children. And you stand here in my state, and you lecture me about showing up? He stepped even closer to his microphone, and his voice dropped. And what came out next was not a talking point. It was a threat. I will sue you every single time you break the law. I will block you every time you overreach. And if you send one more soldier into one more American city against the will of the people who live there, I will be standing on the courthouse steps the next morning with every attorney in this state behind me. That is not a promise, Mr. President. That is a schedule. He looked at the cameras now, not at Trump, at America. This is the man who wants to be your king, not your president, your king. And every time someone pushes back, he gives them a nickname and moves on to the next rally. That is not strength, Mr. President. That is a tantrum in a suit. And it landed. Give him that to the end. It landed hard. A reporter in the third row stopped writing and looked up with the expression of someone who was against professional instincts impressed. The room tilted. Momentum fully and completely belonged to Gavin Newsom. For about 30 seconds, he was the most effective version of himself that existed. And if the event had ended there, the clip would have run on every network with the Chiron Newsom fires back at Trump, and the 2028 conversation would have started that night. But the event did not end there, and Trump did not flinch. He let Newsom finish. He let the room absorb it. He let the silence after the last word stretch a beat past comfortable. Then he spoke, and his voice was lower now and slower, and something about it made the reporters in the front row lean forward because they could feel the register change. Governor, I'm going to be honest with you. Half the things you just said about me true. Maybe more than half. I'm not a saint. Everybody knows. I'm not a saint. My wife knows. My kids know. The whole country knows. The room held still. Trump admitting fault on live television was not in anyone's script. But here's what I noticed, Governor, and I think the folks at home noticed it too. He held up a hand, counting fingers again. I asked you about your unhoused crisis. You answered with political riots. I asked you about your companies leaving. You answered with the border. I asked you about 1.7 million people walking out of your state, and you gave me a speech about me. He dropped the hand. Governor, if your state is doing so great, why can't you talk about it for 2 minutes without saying my name? 3 questions about his own state. 3 answers about somebody else. If you have ever asked a politician a simple question and gotten everything except an answer, subscribe right now. Because what the governor says next, he did not plan it, his team did not write it, and it is the sentence that changes everything. Stay. The room waited. Newsom should have stopped. His staff, watching from behind the cameras, later admitted to 3 different reporters that they were silently begging him to pivot back to infrastructure, back to the script, back to anything with solid ground under it. But Gavin Newsom could not stop. He had never been able to stop. It was the thing that had made him a star, and it was the thing that was about to end him. And the distance between those 2 outcomes was exactly 1 sentence. You want to talk about loyalty, Mr. President? About trust? I have never betrayed the people who trusted me. The people of California chose me twice, over a recall, over every attack, over every lie this administration has thrown at us, because they know I show up. I do not run, I do not hide, and I do not betray. The word left his mouth, and the room heard it, and half the room knew what was coming, and the other half did not, and the distance between those 2 halves was the distance between a gasp and a silence. And what filled the room was the silence. Trump stopped tapping the podium. He stopped shifting his weight. He stopped doing every small, restless thing he had been doing for 30 minutes. What left him in that moment was the showman, the performer, the entertainer, all of it gone like a coat falling off a chair. And what remained was still and flat and level. Governor, quiet now. You just said you have never betrayed the people who trusted you. Not a question, a repetition. Each word set down on the table like a glass that might break. Never. That is the word you used. Newsom felt the shift but could not retreat from it. I stand by that. Okay. Trump nodded slow. Alex Turk. 2 words, then silence. Your campaign manager? Your best friend? How long did you know him, Governor? 10 years. Newsom tight. Mr. President, this is beneath the dignity of how long. Alex Turk was a valued colleague, and I have addressed, he was your best friend, Governor. Everybody knows it. He ran your campaigns. He built Homeless Connect for you. That was the program that made your name in all this. That guy went to bat for you every single day. Trusted you with his career. Trusted you with his life, really. The kind of trust you build over 10 years when you go through the fights together. Beat. And you had an affair with his wife. The silence that followed was not the silence after a joke. It was the other kind. The kind that has weight. The kind you feel on your skin. The kind where you become aware of the sound of the ventilation system because there is nothing else. And here is the thing I want the folks at home to hear, Governor, because you always talk about accountability. When you got caught, you stood in front of cameras just like these, and you told the country you were getting help, going to a recovery program, taking it seriously. He tilted his head. Did you go? I addressed that matter publicly. Did you go to a recovery center, Governor? That is a deeply personal. You told the Sacramento Bee 11 years later. Your words from the heart. You said, and I quote, "There is no recovery program. I just stopped. There was no treatment. No nothing." Trump shook his head. Not anger, something closer to wonder. You told the whole country you were getting help, and you did not go. You just said the thing, because that is what you do, Governor. You say what the room needs to hear, and then you do whatever you were always going to do. He paused. And then he said the sentence that made every person in that room rewind the last 30 minutes in their heads. You have been doing it the whole time we have been standing here. You know that, right? One sentence, and it landed like a key turning in a lock, because suddenly every person watching in the room and at home saw it. The whole pattern. Not because Trump explained it, because they had watched it happen in real time 3 times in a row. The unsheltered question Newsom's eyes had dropped to the phone below the podium. He had come back up with a redirect about nationwide crisis. The Exodus question the eyes had dropped again. He had come back up with an attack on Trump's criminal record. The betrayal, the eyes had dropped a 3rd time. He had come back up with a speech about the dignity of his office. Same move, same half-second glance down, same smooth recovery, same smile coming back online like a screen rebooting every single time. 3 for 3. And the people at home, the ones leaning forward in their chairs, they did not need anybody to explain it to them because they had watched it happen one after another after another. And the pattern was so clean and so consistent that it felt less like a discovery and more like a confirmation of something they had always suspected but never had the evidence for. You have been doing the same thing at this podium for 40 minutes that you have been doing in Sacramento for 15 years. He did not explain. He did not list examples. He did not need to. Every person watching had already connected it for themselves. And the chill that went through the room was the chill of recognition, not revelation. The feeling of seeing something you had always sensed, but never had the words for. And now a man at a podium had given you the words, and they fit. He just said it. He named it the same move, the same smile, the same look down for 15 years. And now he wants to do it from the White House. If that thought keeps you up at night, share this video with one person who needs to see it. Just one. Then come back, because the governor has one thing left, and what the president says after it is something I need you to hear every single word of. Newsom stood at the podium, quiet, for a long time. When he spoke again, something had changed. The smooth was gone. The rehearsed was gone. What came out was lower and rougher, and more honest than anything he had said all afternoon. And it was, for a moment, genuinely beautiful, in the way that the truth is sometimes beautiful when it finally breaks through the surface of a person who has spent their whole life polishing it. You want to break me down to my worst day? Fine. His voice caught on the word fine, and he let it catch. But you do not get to take my life. I could not read a paragraph until I was 12 years old. Teachers told me I was unintelligent. They wrote it in evaluations that my mother had to sign. My parents split up. I fought for everything I have. Everything. And I am still here. Still standing in rooms where people want me to fall. I have been fighting since before you knew my name, Mr. President. Every single day. And it was real. Or if it was not real, it was so close to real that the distance did not matter. And the room felt it. And a reporter in the second row looked down at her hands. And even Trump, even the man who had just taken him apart at the seams, sat still and quiet, and did not interrupt. Because whatever Gavin Newsom was in that moment, he was human. And the room owed him that. He just put everything on the table, the disability, the parents, the fight. And it was real. You could hear it was real. But the president did not blink. He sat there, and he waited. And what he said next is the reason this clip will be remembered 10 years from now. Turn on notifications right now so you do not miss what comes next. Trump let the silence hold. He did not rush it. He let Newsom's words stay in the air the way you let incense stay in a room after the flame has gone out. When he spoke, his voice was different. Not the showman, not the fighter. Something you do not hear often from the man. Something that sat close to respect. Governor, I believe you. I believe you fought. Nobody at this podium is saying you didn't fight. A kid who can't read at 12 and makes it to where you are standing right now. There is something real in that. I mean it. Beat. But here is the thing that 40 million people in your state have been trying to figure out for 15 years, and I think they just did. He looked at Newsom, not at the cameras, at him. You just gave a hell of a speech about your fight, your dyslexia, your childhood, your parents, your whole life, and it was real. I believe every word you said. Beat. But Governor, in that whole speech, the one you just gave from the heart, you did not mention them once. Not the 187,000 people sleeping on your sidewalks tonight. Not the families who can't make rent. Not the restaurant owner who had to close forever while you ate at the French Laundry with lobbyists. Not the 1.5 million people who packed up everything they owned and drove out of your state because they could not afford to stay. He was quiet for a moment. Then you just fought for your life up here for 30 seconds, and every single word was about you. He looked at Newsom, level, steady. You have been fighting your whole life, Governor, just never for them. 11 words. And they settled over the room the way a verdict settles over a courtroom, not with a sound, but with a weight that presses down on every surface and does not lift. Nobody laughed, nobody moved, nobody did anything at all for what felt like a very long time, because what had just happened was not a joke, and was not an insult, and was not the kind of thing you react to with your hands or your voice. It was the kind of thing you react to with the part of you that recognizes truth when it arrives without warning, the part that knows before your brain catches up that something has just been said that cannot be unsaid. Newsom stood at the podium. His hand moved down below the rim to the shelf where the phone sat, the phone that had been buzzing quietly for 40 minutes. The phone his staff had been feeding with talking points and counter-arguments and pivots and lines. The lifeline that had saved him 3 times already this afternoon, the weapon he had used for months to call this man brainless and post memes of his face and build the brand that was supposed to carry him to the biggest stage in the world. The phone buzzed. He looked down for the first time all afternoon. There was nothing on the screen that could save him. No talking point for 11 words, no redirect for a truth, no meme, no caption, no hashtag that could turn this into a clip that worked in his favor. He turned the phone over, face down on the podium shelf. The glass touched wood with a small click, barely audible, the quietest sound in the room, but in the silence it carried. Every camera in the room caught it. The man who had spent months building an entire political identity on a screen, putting the screen face down in front of the country because the screen had finally run out of answers. A reporter near the front cleared her throat. "Governor, any response?" Gavin Newsom looked at the space between the cameras and the man beside him, the space where neither lens nor opponent could help him, and he did not speak. By the time the pool cameras cut their feeds, the clip already had a name. 15 seconds clean. Trump saying 11 words, Newsom looking down, the phone turning over, the silence. Ron DeSantis posted within the hour. 5 words, he just described the whole party. Nothing else. No commentary, no elaboration needed. Because the 11 words did not describe one man. They described a type, a whole species of political animal. And DeSantis knew it. And every person who read those 5 words knew it. And the knowing was the thing that made the clip travel faster than any press release or campaign ad could have ever carried it. In a hallway outside the venue, a Democratic congressman who had supported Newsom through 2 election cycles and a recall stood with his back against a marble wall and spoke to a reporter without making eye contact. "Gavin's problem is not that he got caught," the congressman said. "It is that we all knew. We covered for him for years because that is what you do for your own, even when your own makes it hard. But you cannot cover for someone once the room stops believing, and that room stopped." He pushed off the wall and walked away before the recorder came up. That evening, on a cable news panel, a commentator attempted to mount a defense. Governor Newsom has a demonstrable record of investment in the co-anchor. Without looking up from her notes, if the record is so strong, why are 1.7 million people leaving it? The commentator opened her mouth, closed it, the panel moved on. Trump stepped out of the building into the California sun. He did not give a statement. He did not do a victory lap. He stopped at the door, turned and looked back at the podium through the glass, where Newsom still stood. Phone face down, microphone live, not speaking. Then he said something to the aide beside him, quiet, almost to himself. And the only reason anyone heard it was that a boom mic on a departing camera truck caught the edge of it beautiful state. Shame. One word hanging in the air after it. Then the car door closed, and the motorcade pulled out, and the cameras tracked it until it turned the corner and was gone. Gavin Newsom remained at the podium for another 40 seconds after the last camera cut. His staff approached. Someone touched his arm. He picked up the phone, held it for a moment without turning it over, and then put it in his jacket pocket and walked off the stage. He did not look at the cameras on the way out. He did not look at anything. He walked the way a man walks when he has just discovered that the room he built his life in has a door he never noticed, and it has been open the whole time, and everyone could see through it except him. If you nodded even once, just once, hit that like button. If you are tired of watching people fight for themselves on camera while the people behind them get forgotten, subscribe right now. Leave one word in the comments them, and share this with someone who knows what it is like to keep showing up every day. No camera, no applause, no magazine cover, just the work, because somebody finally said it out loud.